It was the kind of night where the world outside seemed to be holding its breath. No cars on the street, no wind brushing against the windows, just stillness. The kind of stillness that makes even the smallest sound echo in your ears. From the living room, I could almost imagine the shadows settling into their corners, undisturbed, as if they too were asleep. But in my bedroom, the silence wasn't complete. Somewhere above my head, the wall clock whispered its steady tick, 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 each beat slicing through the darkness like a metronome keeping time for something unseen. The air felt heavy warm from the blanket wrapped around me, yet there was a faint chill running along my skin, the kind you can't explain. I was drifting somewhere between dreams and the edge of waking when it happened. A faint blue glow so soft it could have been mistaken for moonlight spilled across the nightstand. My phone screen had lit up just for a second, then went dark again. Seconds later, it pulsed to life once more, this time holding just long enough for the shadows in the room to bend and retreat from its light. The glow wasn't comforting. It felt intrusive, like a knock at a door you didn't expect. I didn't yet know it, but that tiny flicker was the first ripple in a storm about to break my entire night apart. The soft click of the door handle turning was almost lost beneath the ticking of the clock, but not quite. It was the kind of sound you wouldn't notice if you were fully awake, but in that fragile state between sleep and awareness, it's deafening. The door eased open just enough to let in a sliver of hallway light, cutting across the darkness in a thin, accusing line. Claire's silhouette appeared in that gap, small, hesitant, yet deliberate. She didn't rush. Every movement was slow, almost calculated, like she had practiced this in her head a dozen times. Her bare feet barely made a sound on the carpet, but I swear I could hear her breathing shallow, quick, the kind of breathing that comes when adrenaline is at war with fear. In her right hand, I caught the glint of something familiar, my wallet. Her fingers curled tight around it, knuckles pale, trembling just enough to betray the calm she was trying to fake. She paused halfway to my desk, listening maybe to make sure I was still asleep. My eyes stayed shut, my breath steady, though my mind was fully awake now, tracing every inch of her movement. Claire reached the desk, her shadow bending over it as she slipped my credit card from its slot. For a second, she froze, card in hand, like she was holding her breath along with the rest of the room. Then, without a word, she backed away toward the door, the wallet clutched to her chest, leaving the faint scent of her perfume lingering in the air long after she disappeared into the hallway. It was such a small sound, just the faint plastic on leather whisper of my credit card sliding free from its slot, but in that moment it was deafening. My heart stuttered. A single beat skipped, as if my body instinctively knew what my mind was only starting to register. The card caught a glint of light from the hallway, the embossed numbers briefly shining like a flare in the dark before disappearing into Claire's trembling hand. She held it for a moment, too long, staring at it the way a gambler stares at their last chip. There was no hesitation in her fingers now, only a quiet determination that made the room feel colder. The shadows seemed to lean in, watching her every move, the ticking clock slowing in my ears until it felt like time itself was holding its breath. I didn't move, I didn't speak, but inside a storm had already begun to form. The door closed with the softest click, so delicate it might have been mistaken for the house settling in the night. But to me, it was a signal, the kind that makes your skin prickle. For a few seconds, the silence returned, stretching thin across the room, almost convincing me to let my guard down. Almost. Then it started. One buzz from my phone, then another and another. Each vibration rattled against the wooden nightstand like a warning drumbeat. The blue glow returned, brighter this time, flashing with a rapid succession of notifications. My bank app was lighting up the screen, transaction alerts, stacking one after the other, each one bigger, more obscene than the last. First-class airfare, luxury boutiques, high-end jewelry. My mind didn't want to believe it yet, but my body already knew the little click of the door wasn't the end of something. It was the beginning. By morning, my phone looked like it had been in a fight and lost. The lock screen was stacked with alerts, each one screaming at me in cold digital text. Transaction alert. Weller $200 airline purchase. My stomach tightened. Scroll. Transaction alert 2800 Tokyo luxury boutique. My pulse kicked harder. Scroll again. Transaction alert 300 jewelry store. By the time I reached the smaller charges, $600 here, $450 there, my chest felt like it was caving in. Each alert wasn't just a number. It was a blade sliding between my ribs. I could see the pattern. Now first class airfare, high-end, shopping, lavish dining. Claire wasn't just spending. She was parading her theft across a luxury itinerary. My hands were trembling before I even realized I'd sat up in bed. The sheets twisted around me like restraints. It wasn't just money disappearing. It was trust years of it being drained with every swipe of that card. The deeper I scrolled, the more vivid the picture became, like watching a movie of my own money vanish in real time. The first blow, a 1-200 first class ticket. Not economy, not even business class first class. The kind where they hand you champagne before you've even found your seat, where the seat turns into a bed and the menu reads like a 5-star restaurant. Then came the $2.800 splurge at a Tokyo luxury boutique. I knew the place from magazines, glass walls, gold accents, the kind of store where sales associates wear gloves to hand you a handbag. Claire hadn't just walked in there, she walked in with my card and the confidence of someone who never intended to pay the bill. The $3.100 jewelry purchase was next. That wasn't just a necklace or a ring, it was an announcement. Look at me. Followed by the smaller charges that weren't small at all, $600 for a night at an upscale restaurant, $450 at a trendy rooftop bar, $300 at some gift shop that probably sold things you could get for $10 anywhere else. Each charge was a scene, and together they told the story of someone living like royalty on a throne they didn't earn. The numbers on my phone were still burning in my head when I yanked open the desk drawer. My wallet lay there right where I'd left it, almost mocking me with its neat, innocent placement. I flipped it open, empty. The slot where my credit card should have been stared back at me, a clean, vacant strip of leather that felt colder than it should. My fingers brushed it, as if maybe somehow the card would still be there if I touched the space hard enough. The house was silent. Not the peaceful kind of silence, but the hollow, echoing kind, like the aftermath of a slammed door. No footsteps, no voices, just the faint hum of the fridge in the kitchen, and the sound of my own breathing, shallow and uneven. I called out once, Claire, nothing. The air felt heavier with every second. Somewhere deep down, I already knew she wasn't here, and neither was my card. The proof didn't come from the bank, it came from Instagram. By noon, my phone buzzed with a notification I didn't ask for. Claire had posted a new story. Against my better judgment, I opened it. There she was, grinning like she just won the lottery, a flute of champagne in one hand and a crisp boarding pass in the other. Next to her page was doing the same, both of them framed by the plush leather seats of an airport first-class lounge. The caption was the kind of thing you expect from a travel influencer, first class to Tokyo, baby. When life's too short, make it luxurious. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. She hadn't just taken my card. She was broadcasting her little heist to the world like it was a badge of honor. The comments below were full of heart emojis, so jealous, and goals. None of them knew they were cheering for a thief. None of them knew they were clapping for my stolen $11,000. Looking at that Instagram story, it wasn't just the theft that burned, it was the history behind it. Claire hadn't become this entitled overnight. She'd been groomed for it since the day she was born. She was the youngest of the baby of the family, and somehow the title came with a lifetime immunity pass. If Claire wanted something, she got it. If she messed up, the family cleaned it up every single time. When she crashed Dad's car at 17 because she was texting behind the wheel, he didn't yell. He hugged her and said, "Thank God you're safe." 2 weeks later, she had a newer, shinier car in the driveway. When she blew through $4,000 of her savings on a spring break trip, Mom called it a valuable life experience. And when she lost her retail job for skipping 3 shifts, Dad took her out for lunch to cheer her up. Me, when I accidentally overdrew my account by $40 in college, I got a 20-minute lecture on financial discipline and a warning to start acting like an adult. The message was clear: Claire could do no wrong, and I was the one expected to always do right, even if it meant cleaning up her mess. While Claire floated through the life with a safety net made of excuses, I was the one expected to hold the family together. I was the responsible one, the steady hand, the one who never needed rescuing. And because of that, no one ever bothered to ask if I was okay. My good grades were taken for granted. My part-time job at 16 wasn't celebrated, it was expected. When bills came up short or someone forgot their share, I was the one who quietly covered it. Because you're the one who can handle it. It was an invisible role, but it weighed more than anyone realized. Every decision I made was filtered through the question, how will this keep the peace I learned early, that if something needed doing, it would somehow end up in my hands? If Claire couldn't pay her rent, I was writing the check. If she needed groceries, I was at the store. If her phone got cut off, I was on the phone with the provider. And it was never called generosity, it was just what family does. Except it wasn't what family does, it was what I did and what they expected me to keep doing forever. Claire's life was a highlight reel of bad decisions with happy endings. Happy for her anyway. There was the time she borrowed mom's jewelry to wear to a party and somehow lost a diamond earring worth more than my car. Instead of anger, mom sighed and said, "It's just a thing. At least you looked beautiful that night." Then there was the summer she decided she was over her job at a calf and walked out mid-shift, never mind that rent was due the following week. Dad wired her the money that same day, telling her, "Don't worry, you'll find something better. You're too special for that kind of work." And who could forget the Miami trip? She maxed out her own credit card on hotels, cocktails, and designer bikinis, then called me in tears about how life is for living. And her bank just doesn't understand. Dad not only paid it off, he praised her for making memories. Every mistake Claire made was rewritten into a charming little story the kind families retell with fond laughter. But when I made a mistake, it became a cautionary tale about responsibility and discipline. She was the golden child with a get out of jail free card. I was the safety net she landed on every single time. By now, the anger wasn't just mine. It belonged to anyone hearing the story. Every flashback stacked like bricks, building a wall of frustration so high there was nowhere left for the tension to go but forward. This wasn't a single theft, it was the final straw in a lifetime of being taken for granted. And something in me had shifted. I could feel it. I wasn't just replaying the charges on my phone anymore. I was replaying years of smaller moments I'd let slide, times I'd swallowed my pride to keep the peace, times I told myself it's not worth the fight. But looking at those $11,000 worth of charges, I realized something sharp and clear peace had never been on the table. It was control, and Claire had always had it because I let her. Not anymore. My chest felt tight, but it wasn't fear this time, it was focus. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about how to fix things quietly. I was thinking about how to end them loudly. If Claire thought this was gonna be just another story where she got away clean, she was wrong. This time, I wasn't reacting. I was preparing. The first step was the bank. I called before my coffee even brewed, speaking to a fraud specialist who walked me through every single charge. The times, the merchants, even the locations, all neatly logged and time-stamped. I had them email me a full report before we even hung up. Next came the geolocation data. What Claire didn't know was that the credit card she'd stolen was linked to my business account, an account ID layered with my own tracking software for expense management. Every time she swiped it, the system pinged a GPS coordinate and matched it to the vendor. I could literally follow her trail from the LAX first class lounge to the duty-free shops in Tokyo, straight through the jewelry store in Ginza. But the crown jewel CCTV footage, a few polite calls to the right places explaining that this was part of an investigation into unauthorized transactions, and store managers were more than willing to send me still images. There she was, champagne in hand, Paige, at her side, both of them smiling, like they just pulled off the perfect crime. Each photo slid neatly into my growing file. This wasn't just evidence, it was an unshakable truth, and I was going to deliver it to her in person. The evidence was airtight, but evidence alone doesn't change a family dynamic, it needs a stage. and I was going to build mine. I didn't want this to be a text argument or a shouting match in the driveway. I wanted Claire to feel the weight of every swipe, every purchase, every lie while looking me in the eye. And I wanted Dad there too, so there'd be no more denial. No more you're just imagining things. So I called her first. My voice was calm, casual, even as if I were offering an olive branch. Thinking about ordering sushi tonight, your favorite place. Why don't you come over? No hesitation on her end. She said yes instantly, maybe picturing herself being welcomed back into my good graces over spicy tuna rolls. Then I called Dad. I told him we should all sit down together, clear the air. He agreed, his tone thick with that parental self-righteousness, certain he was walking into a moment where I'd finally admit I was wrong about Claire. Good. Let him think that. In reality, I was setting the table for something far less forgiving. While the sushi order was placed, I set up my laptop at the dining table, queued up every image, every timestamp, every GPS ping. The screen was my loaded weapon, the evidence folder, my ammunition. Tonight wasn't just dinner, it was an execution. Not of a person, but of the story they'd been telling about her innocence for years. The sushi arrived first, neatly packed in glossy black boxes, each one hiding its own quiet luxury. Claire would see it as a peace offering. Dad would see it as me finally coming around. Neither of them had any idea that under the warm light of my dining room, the real main course was about to be served, cold, and made entirely of facts. I paced the kitchen before they arrived, my hands steady but my pulse pounding like a war drum in my ears. Every sound seemed sharper. The rustle of paper bags, the faint hum of the refrigerator, even the slow blink of the laptop screen waiting on the dining table. The folder was open, the first image queued. All it would take was one tap of a key to unravel years of denial in one sitting. Part of me felt the familiar tug, the urge to soften the blow, to protect the fragile balance of family. But that part had grown small, almost quiet, replaced by something heavier. Resolve. Tonight I wasn't the peacemaker. Tonight I was the witness, the prosecutor, and the executioner of a lie. The sound of tires crunching over the driveway gravel pulled me to the window. Headlights cut across the front yard, casting tall, shifting shadows against the walls. Claire's voice floated up first, bright, careless, like she was walking into a celebration instead of a reckoning. Dad's deeper tone followed, steady and confident, certain of his role as her defender. I moved to the dining table, my hand brushing over the smooth laptop lid before flipping it open. The screen came to life, instantly bathing the room in a cool, almost surgical light. First photo loaded, evidence ready. I straightened the chopsticks beside the sushi boxes, the tiny act grounding me in the calm before the storm. The front door open, footsteps, laughter, and then silence as they stepped into the room and saw me waiting. The smell of fresh sushi mixed with the electric charge in the air. I gestured towards their seats, my smile polite but sharp as glass. They didn't know it yet, but dinner was about to taste like truth. At first, it almost felt like any other family dinner. Claire slid into her chair with that effortless, practiced grace, draping her silk robe around her like she was in the VIP lounge of her own home. Dad took his seat opposite me, already reaching for the sushi, as if this really were just a casual get-together. Chopsticks clicked softly against takeout boxes, the faint smell of soy sauce and fresh tuna weaving through the air. We made small talk, the kind that floats on the surface, carefully avoiding anything that might break it. Claire talked about a friend's upcoming wedding. Dad asked if I'd been keeping busy with work. I answered politely, letting them settle into the illusion that this was all normal. Beneath the table, my laptop sat like a coiled snake, its screen dark for now, waiting for my signal. Every smile I gave was measured. Every nod was deliberate. The room was warm, the lighting soft, but under it all, the truth hummed like a low-voltage current. They didn't know it yet, but we were sitting in the eye of a storm. Halfway through the meal, I set my chopsticks down. The quiet click of wood against porcelain made Claire glance up mid-bite. Dad barely noticed until the sharp snap of my laptop lid opening cut through the air. The soft glow of the screen washed over the table, replacing the warm light of dinner with something colder, more surgical. Without a word, I tapped the arrow key. The first image appeared Claire and Paige in the LAX first class lounge, champagne flutes, raised boarding passes visible. The timestamp glared from the corner of the screen, 3:58 a.m. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. The room seemed to shrink as Claire froze her chopsticks, suspended in midair. Click. Next slide. Claire at a Tokyo Duty Free store, arms full of designer bags. Click. Claire swiping my card at a high-end jewelry shop in Ginza. The same $900 slipper is now sitting on her feet under my table. Each photo landed heavier than the last, accompanied by the neat, indisputable total $11,000. The only sounds left were the faint hum of the laptop fan and the quickening pace of her breath. At first, Claire tried to smirk. It was the same expression she'd worn her whole life when she thought she could talk her way out of anything. "Oh my God, you're still on this." She scoffed, rolling her eyes, but her voice wavered just slightly, a crack in the glass. When I didn't respond, only clicked to the next image, her posture changed. She leaned back, arms folding across her chest, but her fingers were twitching against her sleeves. Her gaze darted between the screen and Dad, as if silently begging him to jump in and save her. He didn't, not yet. By the third photo, the color had drained from her face. Her lips pressed into a thin line and she swallowed hard. This isn't what it looks like, she tried, but even she seemed unconvinced. The confidence was gone, replaced by a kind of frantic stillness, the kind you see in someone who's just realized they're cornered. Dad's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "Enough, Alex. We're not doing this again." He pushed his chair back slightly, his jaw tight, his tone carrying that familiar weight of finality, as if his word alone could close the case. I turned to him slowly. "We're not doing what, Dad?" "Looking at facts, watching your precious daughter on camera, using my card like it's her personal ATM." His face hardened. "She would never." I slammed my palm onto the table, the sound sharp enough to make Claire flinch. "She did. And you're looking at it right now." My voice rose, years of swallowed frustration now spilling over. "This isn't paranoia. This isn't me being unfair to Claire. This is theft, $11,000 worth." Dad's eyes narrowed, but I saw the flicker, the tiny crack in his certainty. Still, he clung to the same refrain. "She's family. You don't call the police on family." I leaned forward, my voice low but cutting. "No, Dad. You don't let family steal from you, lie to you, and make you the villain for defending yourself. That's not family. That's exploitation dressed up as love." The room vibrated with the force of the words, and for the first time, Dad didn't have an immediate comeback. The tension in the room had stretched so tight, it felt like a single word could snap it in half. I straightened my back, looked directly at Claire, and spoke with a calm that was more dangerous than shouting. "You're packing your things tonight. You're leaving my apartment before morning." Her eyes went wide as if she couldn't process the sentence. "You can't be serious. Dead serious." I slid an envelope across the table inside the printed police report, the case number, and a detailed list of every transaction she'd made. "You've got two options: face charges or get out. And for the record, you are not welcome back until you've repaid every cent." Claire's lips trembled, her voice rising into that high, defensive pitch I'd heard 100 times before. "You're ruining my life." I didn't blink. "No, Claire, I'm making sure you stop ruining mine." Dad muttered something about me being heartless as she shoved back her chair, storming toward the spare room. I stayed at the table, hands steady, the weight of years lifting with each step she took away from me. By the next morning, word had spread faster than I thought possible. Claire wasted no time painting herself as the victim, her version of the story stripped clean of any mention of the credit card, the charges, or the folder of evidence I'd laid out. Instead, she told everyone I'd kicked her out in the middle of the night over nothing. It didn't take long for the family to split clean down the middle. On one side, Dad, Mom, and the two cousins who'd been orbiting Claire's drama for years. They repeated her lines almost word for word. Families should stick together. You didn't have to humiliate her. It's not that big of a deal. On the other side were my aunt, my uncle, and a handful of relatives who'd been quietly watching this pattern for years. They called me privately, their voices low, but full of relief. "We've all seen it," Uncle Rob said. "You just had the guts to do what the rest of us wouldn't." It was strange how the same story could make some people furious and others quietly proud. But that's the thing about drawing a boundary. The ones who've been crossing it will always take offense. 2 days later, the tone of every conversation shifted. Detective Harris from the Financial Crimes Division had officially contacted Claire. The message was clear payback, the full $11,000, and sign an admission of guilt or face criminal charges that would go on her permanent record. For the first time in years, Claire had no witty comeback, no tearful performance that could erase the facts. She went silent completely. No texts, no calls, not even a dramatic social media post. I knew what that meant. She was scrambling, and sure enough, it wasn't long before Paige called me, her voice trying to sound casual but landing somewhere between pleading and panicked. "Look, Alex Claire is freaking out. If she gets charged, she'll never get a real job again. Can you just help her out this once?" I almost laughed. "Tell her to sell those designer slippers she bought in Ginza. That should cover the first couple hundred." And then I hung up. For once, the law, not me, was setting the boundary. Once the legal reality sank in, the silence broke, and it broke loud. My phone became a revolving door of incoming messages, missed calls, voicemails, texts stacked on top of each other. At first, they were syrup sweet pleas. "Alex, please, we can work this out. You've always been the strong one. Don't let this ruin her future." When that didn't work, the tone shifted. The messages got sharper, meaner. "You're heartless. No wonder no one in this family trusts you." And when insults failed, they tried fear. One voicemail from an unknown number growled, "You think the cops will protect you forever." It was almost laughable how quickly desperation can turn ugly. But I didn't answer. I didn't defend myself. Every message, every threat was proof of exactly why I'd drawn the line in the first place. The more they spoke, the more certain I became I was never going back to the role they'd written for me. Every call I ignored. Every text I refused to answer. It wasn't avoidance. It was protection. Not just of my money, but of my sanity, my boundaries, my life. For years, I've been the first one to cave the one who bent just enough to keep the peace. But peace had been a lie, and I was finally done pretending it wasn't. The harder they pushed, the stronger my resolve became. Their guilt trips no longer landed, their accusations no longer stung. Instead, each attempt to pull me back into that old role only reinforced how badly I needed to stay out of it. I realized that real strength isn't just about standing up in a single moment. It's about holding your ground long after the adrenaline fades. And so, I stayed still. Not cold, not cruel, just steady. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing at all, except refuse to move when someone tries to drag you back into the chaos you fought so hard to escape. 3 months later, the final chapter of this mess landed quietly in my inbox. An email from my lawyer with the subject line, "Final payment received." Attached was a scanned document, Claire's signature, at the bottom of an admission of guilt. The ink slightly smudged, as if her hand had trembled signing it. The payment receipt was there too. $7,800, the last installment of the $11,000 she owed. I stared at the screen for a moment, not because I needed the money. It was never just about the money, but because it felt like closing a door I'd been holding open for far too long. That signature wasn't just her admitting to the theft, it was the end of her free pass. It was proof that the line I drew had held. For years, I'd watched her skate past consequences like they were puddles she could jump over. Now there it was in black and white, her name on a legal document that would follow her for the rest of her life. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilt. I felt clean. The house feels different now. Not quite her silence used to feel like tension, like waiting for the next shoe to drop. This silence is warm, is the hum of my coffee maker in the morning, the soft click of my front door, locking at night, the sound of peace I didn't realize I'd been craving. No more surprise charges on my bank statement. No more arguments over who owes what. My paycheck is mine again, and so is my time. I've started taking weekend trips, cooking new recipes, even joining a local hiking group. Simple things, but they feel like small rebellions against the years I spent carrying everyone else's weight. Sometimes I pass by the spare bedroom Claire used to occupy. It's clean, now turned into an office, with plants by the window. I don't think about her much, not in anger anyway. The boundary I set didn't just push her out, it pulled me back into my own life. And that's the part I'm keeping no matter what. If there's one thing this whole mess taught me, it's this: people will take as much as you allow them to. They'll smile while they're doing it, they'll tell themselves it's harmless, and they'll convince you that you're the unreasonable one for finally saying enough. Boundaries aren't walls. They're doors with locks, and you get to decide who holds the key. The moment I stopped letting guilt dictate my choices, I realized that saying no isn't cruelty, it's self-respect. And when you protect your peace, some people will call you selfish. Let them. That's just the sound of losing access to what they never valued in the first place. From this day forward, I only need one word: no, to the quiet thefts in the middle of the night. No to being treated like an endless source of money, patience, and forgiveness. No to the guilt trips and the emotional blackmail. No to sacrificing my peace just to keep the peace. It's amazing how powerful such a small word can be. It cuts through lies. It draws a line in the sand. It tells the world and myself that my boundaries are not suggestions. They are rules. And rules don't bend just because someone is uncomfortable. I've learned that no is not cruelty. It's not revenge. It's not bitterness. It's the purest form of self-respect. And the day you learn to say it without flinching, you stop being a victim and start being the author of your own life. So now when someone tries to push me back into the old role, I don't explain, I don't justify. I just say it calmly, clearly, and without apology. From now on, I only need one word. No, this story is a reminder that boundaries are not selfish. They're necessary. The people who benefit from your silence will always call you cruel the moment you speak up. But protecting your peace, your finances, and your dignity is never wrong. If you don't set the limits, someone else will decide them for you, and they won't be in your favor. If this story resonated with you, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon so you never miss another powerful story about courage, boundaries, and taking back your life.